You know, Arlington is a very special community. Educated, affluent, prosperous, low unemployment, high occupancy rates, growing. You know, those are words in this country that are foreign to most communities. And yet we have that here every day. I think we are truly blessed. And the question is, how and why? Telling the Arlington story is one way to find out. County Board Chair Chris Zimmerman, talking to many of you and other citizens in the community, began to realize what a rich history we have, and charted early this year a year-long study of recording people's thoughts on who we are, how we got here. And that's what we're going to hear about tonight. I have a notebook over there of listing the 32 testimonies, snippets of history that are already recorded and you can see on the county website. We're going to see a couple of them tonight. And we've recorded over here a number more, and the opportunity to record even more as time goes on. But Chris had the inspiration and the leadership to make this all happen. So we're going to kick the program off with Chris telling us why and what he thinks about it. Chris.
Thank you, and good evening. I'd like to thank the Committee of 100 for putting this topic on tonight's agenda and for giving me the opportunity to introduce it. When I assumed the chairmanship in January, I, of course, talked about the things that occupy so much of the board's time and policy attention. Things like land use and site plans, infrastructure, fiscal policies, and so on. But I noted that creating a great community is about more than these things. I said that it's just as much about forming a shared sense of identity. And I asserted that cultivating that sense means understanding where we came from and who we are collectively. It means listening to many voices and different means of expression. For me, Tell Arlington Story reflects two intentions: to enhance our collective understanding of who we are as a community at this moment in our history, and to capture and preserve for the future an understanding of what Arlington became at the beginning of the 21st century. It is born of a belief that a sense of our own history is vital to our identity as a community, and that knowing each other better is a key component to better civic engagement and community dialogue. This year, the County Board has acted on several important measures aimed at protecting Arlington's built legacy. The Historic Resources Inventory, for instance, and the associated policies adopted in conjunction with it are aimed at conserving the collective memory that is embodied in the physical structures that Arlingtonians have constructed and occupied over the decades, the garden apartments, the shops and offices, and so on. Of course, we're also participating in the ongoing Civil War sesquicentennial commemoration. Eventually I'll learn to say sesquicentennial. But history isn't just about buildings, and it isn't just about things that happened a long time ago. It's about people, and it's happening now. As I said in January, Arlington enjoys a living history, a story unfolding before us, even as we live it. For me, as I tried to express then, the goal of Tell Arlington Story is to capture a living history, celebrating the growth of our diverse community. Arlington in the 21st century is very conscious of the diverse community that it has become. We celebrate Arlington's rich cultural diversity. In official government parlance and the common expression of homeowners, it has become part of our vocabulary. But that's a shorthand. While it is descriptively useful, it can become very abstract. We can lose the full sense of what it really means about our community. To fully appreciate it, we have to dive in, immerse ourselves a bit, and look more closely at some of the parts that make up the whole. One of the benefits of being someone who runs for office is that you get to meet a lot of people, a lot of different people, and hear their stories. As a board member, you find yourselves with groups you might never have encountered, with people who are eager to share their experiences. And you might have started with a mental picture of your community. If you're somebody who's been successful enough to get to run for office, maybe to get elected, you've probably got a pretty good picture of your community. You certainly think you do. But as you get around seeing more people, hearing their different stories, you realize that you only had part of the picture. More of it begins to come into focus as you hear more people. You understand that it is far more complex and varied, richer than you could have imagined. And you begin to appreciate that you still don't see it all. You sense there is more of the picture out there undiscovered. I've heard stories of Arlington from the perspective of someone who grew up as a little girl living over her father's shop on Columbia Pike before there was a movie theater on the site. I've heard the experiences of an African-American GI who served in World War II and came to Arlington when he married a local girl. I've listened to a tearful mother tell of escaping from Ethiopia with 2 of her children after losing her husband and a child to violence, and how working multiple jobs to support them, she struggled desperately to learn English so she could pass the citizenship test. I've heard a first-hand account of the unauthorized landing of an airplane on the site of the construction of Shirley Highway. I've learned the story of a boy whose youth included shining shoes on the streets of San Salvador before joining his mother in the U.S., eventually becoming a leading citizen here. I've listened to people tell of life on their family's dairy farm in the middle of Arlington. I've also heard about life next to the fence that ran through the middle of a North Arlington neighborhood not far from here up until the 60s, dividing white from black. I've listened to the recollections of a young woman from Massachusetts coming to work in the brand new Pentagon during the war. And I've heard numerous accounts of folks who settled in Arlington when they came to Washington to study, from places as far away as Mongolia and Africa, and as near as Ohio and Connecticut, like my wife and I. At some point I thought, someone should be writing this down. And somewhere along the line it occurred to me that these were not just good individual stories. They were the story of Arlington. Tell Arlington Story is an attempt to write it down, for today and for posterity. It represents a kind of formal recognition of the importance of the individuals who make up our community. I think that's appropriate for a county which has adopted a vision statement in which the last words are, where each person is important. The initial idea for this project grew out of discussions last year with a number of people. In particular, I'd like to acknowledge Arlington Deputy County Manager Mark Schwartz and my colleague Walter Tejada. I was also influenced by the work of Lloyd Wolf, Paula Endo, and others in the Columbia Pike documentary project. They, I think, are trying to capture the same thing through the medium of photography. What it has become now is the creation of those who have labored on it and contributed to it. I do want to thank all those who've participated so far, and those who helped to get it started and continued to work on it, especially Dulce Carrillo, who you'll hear from shortly, and from the Arlington staff, and also my colleague Walter, who has continued to work on it as well. It's my hope that Tell Arlington Story will continue to grow month by month and year by year, serving as both a lasting archive and an active mirror, showing us who we are and nurturing our collective self-understanding. And I hope you'll enjoy it. Thank you very much.
And pulling it together is no easy task. And a incredible person helped make this happen. Chris mentioned her, Dulce Carrillo, who is the Arlington Multicultural Marketing Outreach and Advocacy Manager in the Department of Parks and Recreation. She was tapped to coordinate the telling of the Arlington Story and the diversity dialogue initiatives that was set up within the county. She is the county's multicultural network person, heads it up, and that's an interagency dedicated to expanding outreach and underserved, the hard-to-reach community members. Her interests include civic engagement and building bridges to better connect our diverse and inclusive community. Please welcome Dulce.
Thank you, Link. And good evening, everyone. Thank you so much to Jim for inviting me, and it's always really hard to speak after Mr. Zimmerman. I've never had the pleasure, but... Well, Mr. Zimmerman talked so eloquently about the vision and the reason why Tell Arlington Story was created, and that inspired me. I hope, I would guess you also got inspired. So, oops, let's move back to, that's fine. So imagine, how good it is for me, because this initiative brings together not only my professional duties, but also my personal passions. So I was very excited to be able to help coordinate this initiative. And of course, nothing can be done, no one can do anything like this alone. So let's see if I carry this out. What we did right away was get together with a group of staff members and put our heads together and say, well, we have this great vision and all these inspirational ideas, and how are we going to make this happen? So let's see if... There we go. I want to go back, though, real quick. But leave it there. This is the great slide. So some of the objectives, Mr. Zimmerman named the larger ones. And in our committee, we came together. The first thing we did was put together a work group. And I think you'll hear some of the big organizations that helped us out that got on board right away. We had George Mason University. We had Arlington Independent Media, the Columbia Pike Documentary Project, and REAP, Arlington Employment and Education Program, teaching English as a second language to community members. But to give you some faces and to make it personal, this is the group, and not everyone is pictured, but you might recognize some people. And I just want to just really emphasize that it was their passion, their talents, and the commitment that we've seen and continue to see throughout the year is how we got our stories, which I will be showing you in a little bit. So one of our objectives was to reach out to the communities that are less visible, and that was one of the exciting things. Of course, all community members are very important, and we love to hear about the accomplished persons, but there was also something really refreshing about getting to meet people that we would not have otherwise had a chance to hear from without this initiative. And I think some of the interviewers, I know Cheryl did a lot of the interviews, and Harry and John, I heard comments from them that they said how much they really enjoyed. So on the one hand, they were giving a lot of time and energy, but they were also getting a lot by hearing these compelling stories. Some of the groups that were represented, I think I mentioned, I couldn't put them all, but we had Arlington Spellbinders and the Committee of 100, of course, Jim Schroeder. Thank you so much for having this program. The Civic Federation and Arlington Historical Society, Sarah Collins, put together a wonderful program on Queen City history, and generally was with us all along. We had several people from Gunston Middle School who are here this evening and deserve a big thanks. Harry Costner, John Stewart, and Caitlin Chappie, who you will get a chance to enjoy right after me. And yep, So some of the things that they did, and I'll get to the stories quickly so you'll see the actual product, but some of the major things were there was a panel of third and fourth generation African-American members of the community, and Marty Swaim, who's here, put a wonderful program together. And not just this year, last year as well, she put together a program of diverse panelists that we enjoyed greatly. And as I mentioned, the Queen City history, but also we had some workshops. Now, the guys from Network 21 TV and Arlington Independent Media opened the studios, created workshops, and really taught people how to go around with flip cams and collect stories and tell their own story, and those were wonderful. We also had a set of story swapping workshops, and I saw a couple of you there. I just want to say that those experiences, although we didn't capture all those people who did the story swapping, really brought home to me why this initiative was important. For example, one woman a pair of women were met together one night, and they exchanged stories. And at the end, at the debrief, one of them offered that she was really surprised while she was recounting her childhood and these experiences she had, when the other woman was nodding and saying, "Oh yeah, me too. Oh yeah, me too." And the woman was really confused. She said, and they were talking about stories before segregation, before integration, and during segregation. And one woman is white and one woman is African American, and the woman was thinking, there's no way that you could have had those experiences. We are so different. Our lives were so different. But she realized through exchanging the story that absolutely they had so much in common, and it was just a wonderful thing that they realized that by sharing their intimate stories, they really weren't as different as they had thought when they first sat down. And I do want to mention the website, because I think the importance of the Arlington Story website, arlingtonstory.us, that's the repository for all the stories we've collected so far and the stories that we're going to hopefully get from some of you. You can search the site now. If you haven't already told your story, you can go in and see who has, look for your friends. And if you've already told your story and you haven't seen it, you can look for it. And these stories will remain online, and we hope to continue collecting stories. So just to give you a few statistics, this website was launched in February this year. And by the end of October, there were over 10,000 hits to the website, which surprised all of us. We were really happy. And some of the referrals to that website were from the Main County portal, Facebook, which tells you about the times, as well as the library's main page. And so now we currently have about 150 stories online, which I would like to show you next. And about 40 of those were submitted in writing. So you have options. You can video record your story, you can write it and send it with a photograph. A couple people sent in oral files with their story. They were shy, they didn't want their picture, but they told the story. And then we had a few stories in other languages. So I think now we're gonna show the stories video, this is a sampling of some of the stories that we got, and I hope you enjoy it.
My name is V Sanchez, and I have been in Arlington for 46 years. When I came from Bolivia, as an educator, I wanted to settle in a place where I would feel at home, where I could use my talents, such as being bilingual, and to feel that I could be in a place where on Saturdays I can go and buy my Bolivian salteñas, or to go to church where I could be in Spanish. And now, after 46 years, here I am, still in Arlington, and I have my mother now in Arlington, who is 93 years old.
Having grown up here in Arlington County, I actually grew up in the county when we were still segregated. I grew up under Jim Crow, and I'm sure other people that have talked about the various Arlington experiences and shared some idea of that. But simply what it was the separation, the segregation of the races here in Arlington County. And so our school system was segregated, our parks and recreation work was segregated, our fire department was segregated, and a lot of the memories that I have growing up in the county clearly comes through that particular filter.
It's a lot to juggle. Having a family and a career and another passion is always a lot to juggle. Okay, that's all right.
Okay, I just need to work on it.
Okay, make your name on it. And then we'll do your reading homework a little later, okay?
Yay!
Okay. I see my art as a very long-term process. I figure I'll still be making new sculptures when I'm 85. So if the art waxes and wanes based on whatever else is going on, that's okay.
In 2003, I ran for office in a primary, Democratic primary. I won that election for Commissioner of Revenue and won again in a general election. I didn't run as a minority candidate because I felt that very strongly that as an elected official, I should be a representative for everyone who lives in Arlington. But I am proud of the fact that I'm the first and maybe only Sudanese American in the United States who is an elected official.
Well, I had one student one year at HB Woodlawn who was not doing her homework. She wasn't doing well at all, so I called her in. I talked with her. I said, we talked together and we came up with a plan to help her do her homework. I said, what you do, each of the students had free blocks. During your free block, come into my room, sit right there, and do your homework then. So she was doing that, and there she was sitting there, all alone, no one else was in the room, until one of my more advanced students came in and said to me, you know, I'm hearing a lot about the Rene Descartes. And he said, I think, therefore I am. What did he mean by that? What was that all about? So I started to explain how he wanted to look at the world and see something that he really could believe in absolutely without any problem. And he would say, like, there's a tree there. Well, okay, there's a tree there. It looks like way, but maybe my senses are deceiving me. I think water is good for me, but I don't really know that. There's all kinds of things going around. It looks like things fall. Do they always fall? It seems to, but I don't really know. How do I know something rock bottom solid? And I went through this whole explanation like this, at which point this kid over in the corner looks up and said, was he from the 60s?
Americans don't know what they have. Spoiled, have too much. But we come from other country, we appreciate. We work hard, very hard, what we have. Now, I am business women. I used to be business. I used to have beauty shop in Potomac, Maryland. I come very, very success women. Single women, young, nobody give me nothing for nothing. I work very hard. I own building in Georgetown. Now I'm retired. I'm almost 69 years old. Whatever I have, I did it. My own work.
Well, the lessons I've learned is that I've got to be very diligent about not just taking care of myself in terms of exercise and that, but to watch my diet, watch what I eat. You can be pretty sure that I will be preaching the story of taking care of your diet and making sure that your cholesterol and your blood vessels and all these things associated with that. In this whole ordeal, I don't think I could have made it without my wife. She has truly been a soldier and a soulmate for me. So I just can't thank her enough.
So this is just a sampling of some of the great stories that we have. And so I encourage you to go to arlingtonstory.us and check out more stories. And more importantly, you should be thinking about what story would you tell if you had the opportunity. I think because you will be getting an opportunity in just a little bit. And I'm sure you recognize some people in the stories today, and I hope they encouraged you. Go back. So I'm going to conclude my remarks, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to take them later, but not before. I wanted to invite all of you to come to the Central Library. They're hosting an exhibit of some of the written stories, and if you're in the neighborhood, stop by and take a look. And also, there's going to be on January 20th a celebration and showcase at the Artisphere. So stay tuned for the details, and maybe we'll put up the flyer in a little bit, or after Caitlin's done it. It doesn't matter. But so thank you so much. It's been a wonderful year, and this is like what Mr. Zimmerman said. It's just the beginning. We hope this continues, and that you continue to learn about one another and share your own story. So thank you, and I'll turn it over to Link.
Elsie, that was wonderful. Take a lot of work to pull us all together. But now we're going to have some fun. Our next speaker, Caitlin Capis, is one of the person who actually did and coordinated the recording of the stories that you saw and heard and will create. Catlin is a native Arlingtonian, Wakeville and William and Mary graduate with a master's degree in theater education from Emerson College. She's a Teach for America member, has taught history, drama, special education in South Texas, in Boston, New Orleans, and for the last 9 years in Arlington at Gunston. She's worked with several communities in crisis to script their stories to perform for larger audiences and to give the voice of their experiences. Catlin will help us tell our stories at our tables. So now this is your turn to help record Arlington history. Catlin?
I sound so fancy. I'm not that fancy. I'm Caitlin Chappie, and I am a graduate of Wakefield. I saw Mr. Jewell, one of my math teachers. And I did grow up in Arlington, so I just think it's great. Arlington is a really wonderful place with so much rich history. But I am going to do very little talking. What we're going to do right now, obviously many of you know each other, and you're sitting with people that you know. And so the charge for this evening is to think about a story that sort of represents your experience as a resident in Arlington. And we're going to participate in a story circle, which is exactly what it sounds. We sit in a circle, one person starts, you think of a story that'll take 2 to 3 minutes, and everybody at your table just listens. And then we go to the next person, and you tell a story, and we listen. And it's not a conversation, it's not a facilitated conversation. The real purpose is to build a collective story at your table, and the shared topic today is your experience as a resident in Arlington. So there were fantastic stories as warm-ups. I love Jim's story. As I said, many of you know each other. So if you think of a story that you want to share at your table about being a resident of Arlington and you've thought of it already and you're happy with it, share that. If you need a starter of sorts, there's a little bag on your table with candy canes in it, and there are suggested topics that you can use or not use. But the big thing about telling a story in this type of format is to really think of the beginning, the middle, and the end. And everybody listens and enjoys the story, and you can be inspired by the story. You can jot some notes down. There's little scraps of paper and pens in the bag also. And I missed a table. Joel says table. I'll get it for you. Oh, it's there? Okay. And that's it. That is the whole act of telling a story circle. What I have done in the past is that I've used the transcripts from the story circles, and I've done performances with them. This will not be performed. The act of this evening is that this is a real way for you to experience creating a collective story with your table. And so we have 25 minutes. There's 6 or 7 of you at a table. It's not hard to tell a story that's 2 to 3 minutes. It's actually about what it takes. So I'll be walking around. If you get confused, you can raise your hand. The thing that you need to do first is select one person to start. And if that brave person starts, then you just go clockwise around the circle, and then everybody can speak, everybody can listen, and then at the end we can just take a minute to see if there's some shared experiences that come out of it. Okay?
Advertise for what you wanted. You didn't have to worry about equal opportunity and all of these things. You could get someone who were, you know, and
know something about how to create a corporation, how to apply for nonprofits, or tax exempt states.
So just to close, I hope that you enjoyed listening to each other in the context of sharing some experiences about Arlington. And just to invite everybody to continue to share their stories on the Tell Arlington website, to come to the event that's going to be at the Artisphere on January 20th. And also just to tell stories with people that you know, people in your neighborhood, other community events. Thank you.
Let's hear your story.
Thank you.